I have 9 or maybe 8 travel tips for long distance flights or rides to talk about today. And should anybody feel like they've something to add or anything to take away, please just put it in the comment section, because sometimes I have people calling and, oh, you talked about this, and I think I agree with you. Yes, I know, but it would be nice to share with everybody and put it in the comment section. Thank you for being here. This is Zawi TV. My name is Cecilia, and for those joining us for the first time, welcome. Yes, traveling long distance has become the order of the day. And for most people, when they get older, they find sometimes running into some problems that they never may have experienced before. I want to say you have to prepare well in advance for your long travel trip, right? For example, in my case, 2 or 3 weeks prior to travel, I start becoming more and more active. I know there are people who are quite good with being active, walking, exercises, but for those that are not really active, I think it would make a good, it's a good idea that you start walking more, you start being more active more, because some of these long flights can take a day, an entire day or two. Yes, maybe with an hour connection in between, but those are long flights and it may not be safe in as far as your blood circulation is concerned. So keep your body ready for the trip. Also, I find drinking water, maybe a lot more water, maybe a day or two prior to the date of travel, because why I do this, or why I think this is right, is because on the actual date of travel, I hate to be taking too much fluids. I'm kind of lower on my recommended intake because I want to minimize just my visits to the washroom, right? But water is recommended. If there's doctor's orders, please go ahead and do that. The other thing I've learned to do after talking with some people and friends, this is not medical advice, guys. A week or two, I start increasing my intake of garlic in my food. I usually cook with garlic, but sometimes I skip. Sometimes I go a week or two without using it. But when I'm traveling, I try to incorporate garlic more in my diet, right? Like cooking with it more than, well, if I haven't been using it as regularly as that. Why? Because I think garlic has some positive or good effect on the blood, on the blood. And for those, let me say, for those who are on blood thinners and who get aspirin from their doctors, please do not follow this advice. I don't think it's medically proven. You may need to talk to your doctor, but I don't think this will be recommended for anybody on blood thinners. Don't go out there saying, oh, I'm going to take garlic, because I'm not a doctor, so I can say this. Follow your doctor's advice. This is something for people with nothing, no other issues to do with blood and, using blood thinners, maybe getting aspirin and other blood-related prescriptions from their doctors. Otherwise, whatever advice, if it's to take anything to help with blood flow and circulation, talk to your physician first. But that's what I do, and I found it has helped me, right? So I have my fluid intake ahead of time. I have my exercise ahead of time. And now I'm ready to go to the airport, right? So I make sure that my passport, my travel documents, and lately, yes, you always have to have your COVID certificate with you, because sometimes they ask, sometimes they don't, right? So have your documents together, and don't ever leave those travel documents like the passport and any other documents unpacked until the very last day. Make sure you keep those in your wallet or wherever you keep them when you travel, way ahead of the travel date. Because when you get closer to the travel date, usually people get anxious and they're rushing for this and that, and in the, you can easily forget anything, like something like, like a passport, and you don't want to find yourself in that mess. And also for seniors like us, always make sure you get all your medications with you. There's nothing as frustrating, inconveniencing, and if not almost dangerous to find yourself you've traveled 24 hours or 36 hours, you're on the other side of the continent, of the continent, and then you left all your medications. That's very dangerous. Make sure you have sufficient supply for the period of time you're gonna be on the, wherever you are visiting, right? If it's 2 months, if it's 3 months, talk to your doctor. And sometimes make sure that you count the medication when it's delivered from the pharmacy or when you pick it up. Sometimes you find maybe there was a counting error, and if there's any medication you have to split or cut into 2, make sure you split it before you go, because sometimes in the process the other half crashes and things like these are important things, guys, because you don't want to be running short of medication when you travel. And some medications you can't just stop like that, so make sure you have sufficient medication. If need be, also go to the travel clinic to get your vaccines, depending on where you travel. Some places you need anti-malaria, some places you need yellow fever vaccines. The doctors know what to give you depending on where you go. You don't just take anti-malaria because somebody's taking, because they may not be the doctors. That's why we have travel clinics. You tell them where you're going and go to the travel clinics well ahead of time, because some medications have to be started before the date of departure. Trust me, guys, I know people who think they can go there a day before and say I'm traveling tomorrow. No, the doctor will tell you, take these 2 days, take these 3 days before, or however. So, make sure you have your appointment with the travel clinic well ahead of time, okay, so that you have everything in order, so that you try to avoid getting sick when you travel, because it may not be, good, right? It might cause you some unnecessary expenses. When you see me look down, guys, I have a paper I'm looking at that want to just make sure that I don't miss anything important. Also, try to get to the appointment, to the airport, not hours and hours early for your flight, because you might just get tired sitting at the airport. I think get there within reasonable time, that you don't have to be hurried through the check-in, hurried through security, and sometimes at our ages there's a point beyond we cannot be pushed. It depends, right? So give yourself ample time to arrive at the airport, and make sure you do your things without pushing yourself. I find when we get to the boarding area, sometimes there's an hour and a half, there's 2 maybe hours before we start boarding for these long distance flights. A lot of people are sitting down. Maybe the younger ones are okay, but for mature people, I think pacing up and down the boarding area, maybe going to the duty free, just going up and down, taking some light walks, I think it does help too, because if you're going to be sitting for a continuous 12, 13 hours on the flight, and then these 2 hours you're already sitting, on the boarding area, I think you are adding the 2 hours to the 12 hours that you're going to be traveling. So for me, I find I like to pace around, just walking around, on the boarding area, so that I start counting my first hour of sitting after I board the plane. And make sure you don't lose passports, because when you be careful keeping these documents when you travel. A lot of people lose passports when they check in, they lose passports when they start looking for stuff in their bags, and then they drop it, and you can run into serious problems, especially you lose it when you're on transit. I don't even know how you'll have to fix that if you lost your transport. I don't know if you have to go to the embassy, I don't know, right? And keep some cash on you. some people travel with large amounts of cash. You know yourself better. If you are traveling alone, I don't know, but if you happen to be carrying a lot of cash, let's say $4,000, I would suggest that you put it in different pockets. If you wear something with multiple pockets, which is an ideal outfit for, you know, long distance travel, put different amounts in different pockets, so that way if you ever lose money, you're not gonna lose the entire amount, right? So, or should anybody steal it from you, God forbid, they're not gonna steal the entire amount. And for some people, it may be wise to send the money by transfer companies. For example, I'm just giving an example, let's say Western Union, to yourself, so that when you get to the other side, you just go there and collect. Because I find when I have a little bit more cash, I don't travel with large amounts, but if I have a little bit more cash, like $1,000, and I don't have much on me, I'm not comfortable sleeping. I don't want to be keeping one eye open and the other one closed, because I have money to watch for. So for those who are traveling as couples or as a group, it's easier to watch on each other, right? So that you can sleep comfortably knowing that there's people that are taking care of you. Also, the attire that you wear, I don't ever want to travel in tight fitting clothes, very tight, like tight jeans, tight sneakers, tight everything. I want to be feeling very free when I travel. This is a long journey, right? So I think you want to be most comfortable, but also not very loose, because when you're gonna be walking up and down the aisles, you don't want your clothes to be hanging on, you know, flapping on people's faces. And so be very careful. Also remembering that you will be needing to go to the bathroom. So, you know, you want to make things easy for yourself. And sometimes the bathroom floors are wet and things like that. So you don't want your clothes to be, you know, wow, you know, going on the floor. And so, you know, be wise and be careful about it. Also have something to add onto yourself, because some of these long distance flights are overnight flights, and it can get really cold on the planes, and they do give blankets, but I never find them enough, right? So have a small throw that you keep maybe in your carry-on, that if you need to be able to use it, that just grab it and, you know, cover yourself, or else the entire journey is just gonna be miserable for you. I mean, just trying to keep yourself warm. And don't be sitting for long periods on the flight. Excuse me, let me just fix this. Don't be sitting for long periods on the flight, because you want to avoid swelling in your legs, and, you know, otherwise subsequently developing some clots in your, no, you don't want to do that. Try to get up and pace up and down along the airway. Just make sure you're not doing it at the wrong time, especially when they're, you know, the flight attendants are giving out food. Do that. You know, you can go up and down the entire aisle on the plane. That's fine. And sometimes when you're sitting down, just try and do, you know, tense your muscles in your lower bottom. Some, they call them like Kegel exercises. Just tense them and let them loose, tense them. You can do this sitting on your chair or your feet too. Let me see if I can show you this. You see, your feet, rotate your feet like that, clockwise and anti-clockwise. Clockwise and anti-clockwise. Why? Because it does help with the blood flow. Because your feet are in a dependent position, so there's a tendency of the blood pulling in your feet, right? More than it's flowing backwards. So then you start getting this swelling, which will not be good for you. So when you occasionally rotate your feet like that, and, you know, the other way, and sometimes doing that to your feet, you know, putting, you know, bringing it up and pushing it down, not just going like that, like I just demonstrated, it does help. Do that occasionally during the flight, and you can be doing that sitting on your chair. I have traveled a few times and I've seen some people with swollen feet already like 8 hours into a 12, hour flight. And I'm doing that. I find I'm not having issues with that. And one time I saw this lady looking at me. I think she must have been wondering what I was doing. And then she didn't talk to me, but I saw her do, maybe she figured at some point. So she started doing, rotating her feet, the same way I was. She was copying me. So yeah, she was sensible enough to notice that this could be helping. And I know some people will swell because they have other health issues, but I still think that's gonna help. Just get the blood flowing, right? Yeah, so that's one other important thing. And make sure, I always say, to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings, small fights at the airport, either with staff or other travel, just try to avoid that. I'll give you a short story. One day I was traveling from Toronto to Africa, and I was on this airline. I won't say which one because, it wasn't the airline's problem. It was this person's problem. And we were traveling to the transit destination first. I can't say which one because the moment I say, people will know, because most of these long haul flights will go to their original countries before getting people to connect to their respective places, right? So anyway, about 8 hours into a 12 or 13-hour flight, everybody's sleeping and I'm dozing off too. So I have my blanket covering me. And then I wake up because I feel like there's somebody under the blanket with me, like too close to me, and their hands resting on my left thigh. I was sitting in the middle seat. On the right side was my friend, and on the left side was this man. I didn't, just another passenger, So yeah, and I'm like, what's going on? So I can't be covered. What happened to his blanket? I'm looking, it's on the floor. So I politely say, oh, excuse me, sir, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to pull my blanket, because I thought that would, tell him that you can't be sharing my blanket with me without really complaining like that. So I pull my blanket and I go back to sleep. But I was wondering, how could that have happened? Because the same way I felt him close to me, he should have felt me too. But who knows? Some people are drunk and who knows, right? So after some time, I figured that this guy dropped his blanket on the floor. He was trying to find a good reason to find himself sharing the same blanket with me. He dropped his blanket on the floor and he pulls mine to cover himself again. Like this was deliberate. I saw it. The first time it happened, I was never convinced that it was a mistake or somebody, did it out of just being sleepy. So I was like shocked. Like I said, excuse me, sir, the blanket is so small. Maybe you need to ask for a blanket from I didn't say it's on the floor because I just didn't want to say too much, right? So now I try to go to sleep again, but now I've informed my friend, this is what's happening and I don't trust this guy, but I don't want to say anything. And so now she's pretending to fall asleep, and then the third time it happened again. Can you believe, guys? The third time, I'm like, oh my goodness. So I stopped talking. I just pulled my blanket. And this time I told myself I wasn't going to go to sleep because he was waiting for an opportunity when I fell asleep to be in such mischief, right? So my friend saw it too. And at some point I thought I should tell the flight attendant, or I could have made a scene, and one thing about just making a scene in public is people judge you. Now people don't even listen. You could have been offended. You could be the victim. But if you handle situations like that, making a scene, it's not going to be right with you, right? So I didn't want to tell the flight attendant because I didn't know how she was going to react. And that would probably have meant that they would have moved me from that seat to another seat. And I wanted to be with my friend, so this was a long flight, right? So I said, let me just stay awake. Imagine I had to stay awake the entire flight. And it stopped, it stopped right away because now he knew I was like, the entire journey now, I was like, do I report him when I get to my destination? Do I not? Do I tell? I kept, and then I was convinced that no, I shouldn't even. Now that it stopped, let me just keep quiet, because when you report such situations or incidents, let me say, it's your word against his. You don't know how people view you. You don't know how people look at you. And if it becomes his word against you, and then they don't believe you, people behaving like that could be people who can easily make up a story that's even gonna shock you, because we are sitting next to each other. You could easily make up a story, right? And I was like, I don't wanna just inconvenience myself. It would also mean that when we got to our transit destination, this could delay me, maybe even missing my next flight, because they have to solve this problem. They have to, then I'm staying there for another night or waiting for the next. Why go through that? It was easy for me to just stay awake. So things like that, be wise. Don't fight unnecessary battles. Let things be. Sometimes I stayed awake the entire journey, and that was it. And when we got to our transit destination, he just got up and left like nothing happened. Well and good, right? So yeah. So I've also noted that when you travel, for me, if you are going to some other countries as a tourist, fine, might be a different story. But for me, when I go to Africa, I want to make sure, even when I don't travel with large sums of money, I have enough to buy food if there's a flight delay, to hire a cab if somebody comes to the airport and they were not driving, to have multiple people, like 2-3 people coming to meet me at the airport in case there's a very good, genuine reason why one of the people who had planned to come and pick me up can't show up at the airport. So have a little cash with you so that maybe you'll be able to buy food when there's a flight delay. You'll be able to hire a cab, and for all those unforeseen situations. So yeah, have a little cash, and don't be don't be found wanting when things go wrong. I've also learned to inform the bank. People say it's not necessary these days because of credit cards. You should be able to use your credit card anywhere in the world where you go, the visa. But let me tell you one thing. I've been in Africa. Maybe I was there a bit longer than would be tourists. I don't know. And I'm using, sometimes I've had to withdraw cash from my visa, because from here I have people that can, deposit or pay my visa when I'm away. So at some point, the visa does not cash out, and it sends a message to say I have to walk into the bank. I'm like, what? Walking into my branch? And I'm in Africa. The branch is in Canada. How am I going to do that? So cash stopped coming out, because I had run out of the cash that I had used, So now I'm turning to my visa. Guys, for about 6-8 weeks, I went without cash. And starting to borrow from people, that's when you figure out things aren't as easy as you think, right? So yeah, I couldn't call my bank from there. I couldn't. So my kids had to keep sending money until I got back here. And the funny thing, I know the banks do this for security reasons, but the funny thing, when I got here, I went straight to the bank, to my branch, and said, I traveled and I was taking cash out of my bank. It's not the first time I've done it. At some point, you blocked me. I stopped getting cash like 8 weeks ago. And they were like, I don't see, she was already logged into my account. The lady's like, I don't see anything wrong with it. Nothing, we never blocked you. Like, what? Really? So I know they may have done it for security reasons, and because I may have shown up, I don't know. I can't say she was like, right. I honestly could not explain that, but I know sometimes these things are done for security reasons. So if things like that, let your bank know how long you're going to be away, and you may not just be swiping your credit card, but also taking cash out of it. Because it's not every place that you want to be swiping your card. And they say when you're abroad too, don't just swipe the card, rather insert it and manually push in the pin. They say that's better than, I don't know why. I've gotten that advice, never swipe your card like that to make, I don't know, find out. This part of the swiping card when you are away, maybe it depends where you are. Find out, it may not be authentic information, right? So I've learned to push my card in and and make my payments. Yeah, so I would say that's about it, my few travel tips. I know you may have more, I know you may have different travel tips. Please just remember to add them in the comment section. Please remember to share the video. I know a lot of people have heard about travel tips before, but for some people it's some new topic, right? So don't say, oh, we've heard about that. Yes, but some people may not have heard about that. And traveling is becoming more and more complex each time, the way you have to prepare and what you need to watch out for. So just don't think twice about liking the video, about sharing it and commenting it. Otherwise, for today, guys, bye. See you next time.